Hello, this is Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer.
Welcome home. Soar into tower. We are ready for takeoff.
Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Hey, it's Amy from DVC Clubhouse.
Hey Clubbers, it's Scott from DVC Clubhouse.
Hey, it's Kathleen from DVC Clubhouse.
Welcome aboard. It's Phil from DVC Clubhouse.
Hey, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Debrief Podcast brought to you by DVC Clubhouse. This is Amy, and I'm joined, as always, by Phil, Scott, and Kathleen. Hello.
Hey, guys.
Hi guys.
Welcome aboard, guys.
You know, I'm just letting you guys know right now, as I mentioned before we started recording, I have not really recovered from jet lag from my trip out to the West Coast. So I'm just giving you all fair warning right now. I don't know what that means, but
I was just going to say, what exactly does that mean?
I don't know, but I can just tell you that my brain is a little foggy. So I feel a little bit like I'm having an out of body experience yesterday and today. So if things get a little weird, that's why.
Scott, we could have fun with this.
I'm already thinking of ways I can have fun with this. Welcome back to the East Coast, Amy.
Thank you.
Happy Thursday, Amy.
Back to, yeah, don't even mess with me because I wasn't even sure what day today was before. So, because I took the red eye on Sunday night. And when you take a red eye, like for me, it just ends up feeling like one really, really long day. So I feel a little, that's why I'm a little off kilter a little bit to make a little Disney Epcot reference.
Insert Epcot music here. Gosh, I miss Off Kilter.
Exactly. But bringing it back to the topic at hand, today we are going to have a conversation about if we were to be going to Disney World with somebody who has never been before, what would we do? What would be our must-dos? What would we want to do to make sure that they experience the magic and fall in love with Disney World? Because as DVC members, we vacation very differently than your average first time to Disney World guest because we go so frequently. We don't have that urgency. We don't have the same kind of must do list that somebody who's never been there before or somebody who has never been there before and isn't sure when they're going to go back would have. So let's take a little dive into this conversation. And my first question for you guys is, where would you want to stay? Like, where would be the must-do place that you would want to stay with a guest who was going to Disney World for the first time?
I think this is a fairly simple answer. I'll just jump in right here.
How do I know it's coming?
Well, I think you got to stay at the flagship resort. I mean, if you're going to take somebody and you want them to continue to return, you got to stay at the Crown Jewel. I mean, it's all over the commercials. I mean, has anybody seen Full House? They obviously showed the Crown Jewel.
I mean, Disney does.
Yeah, for the record,
it's-
we have watched both the first Full House and Fuller House. We are now on our second time through all of the episodes because Mackenzie has found this show on Disney Plus, and it's all she wants to watch.
What a great show. Brings back good memories.
I think I agree with you on that, though. I think if you want to have someone experience the full Disney experience, I think Grand Floridian is one of the...
I think it's the most advertised
Yes.
resort. I mean, for good reason. We've said the positives, we've said the negatives about it. Obviously, positives being dining, lounges, location to parks, transportation, all of the things that would pretty much be what you'd want to check off your list. And the negatives, of course, being it's busy. I mean, it's just there's a lot of people there. It's hustle and bustle. But I think if it's a first timer, if you want to give them the full experience, I think a trip at least over to the Grand Floridian is a must. And when I was a first timer, that was something that was on my list. I had done research, not a lot, I didn't know a whole lot about Disney. I stayed at Port Orleans Riverside, but I knew that one thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to go see the Grand Floridian. And it was a dream of mine to stay there. And luckily, becoming a DVC member made that true, made that happen. And I just think that would be probably setting the standard, setting the bar pretty high if you're going to be staying at a nice room at the Grand Floridian.
It's just a little aside. Yeah, as I mentioned, I was on the West Coast and we were in San Diego. So,
You were on the West Coast?
in, in case you missed it, but I was in San Diego and I wanted Emma, my 16-year-old daughter, to see the Hotel del Coronado, which was the inspiration for the Grand Floridian. And disappointingly, when we drove over to Coronado Island, the entire roof and exterior was being refurbished. So it had like the what is it called? The scaffolding and the like kind
Scrims.
of canvas it around it. And Emma was like, "Wow, this feels really authentic to my experience at Disney World," because for so long that was what was going on at the Grand Floridian, where the Grand Floridian was being refurbed.
Yeah.
She's like, it's really capturing the aura of the Grand Floridian. So I was a little disappointed because I wanted to take a picture of her, and we didn't even end up parking because it was so anticlimactic because the whole thing was just covered in scaffolding and covered. So
My last view of the Coronado was coming in from the ocean side. It felt a little different, I can assure you.
a little, just this touch.
Just a little different coming in from that side.
But yeah, I mean, the Grand Floridian, first of all, like if you want to set somebody up for wanting to be a DVC member, I think staying at the Grand Floridian is the way to do it, because if they go to the Grand Floridian and fall in love with it, then they look at how much it costs to actually stay there. They will probably realize that they could take their money a lot farther if they use that money to put a down payment on a contract and be able to stay there far more frequently than if they were going to be paying cash. But I mean, I think Grand Floridian is a good choice, but I don't know that it's necessarily mine. What about you, Phil?
So I'll give my choice in a second, but before we get into where we would stay, are we talking about planning the vacation? Because I feel like that is always the Achilles heel of first timers going to Disney. You would have to start the conversation with them 6 months in advance with my Disney experience and dining reservations and everything else. And I always like to point that out to people that are going the first time. This isn't 1996 where you can just show up and make a dinner reservation or walk up to a restaurant, or you need to plan the heck out of this vacation. So if I had a first timer that was going to Disney, the friends that I have had that have gone and had awful times is because they didn't plan. So I always feel like I need to point that out when we talk about introducing people who have never been before to Walt Disney World.
Right. I assumed in this conversation that I was just going to be with them and I was just
The
going to
thought
do it
also
all.
occurred to me, I'm just going to plan it. We're going to make this really easy.
Yes, I'm not having that conversation with anybody.
They get
And
to be
I'm
my
just
passenger
saying,
princesses.
yes,
Just tag along.
correct. You can show up and reap all the benefits of having a Disney World expert with you, because I feel like part of the process of getting somebody to love Disney World is to make it as easy as possible. Let them experience it first.
Absolutely.
And then they can, on round two, if they go by themselves, then they will have dipped their toe in the water a little bit and can kind of, you know. But for a first timer, I feel like part of the key is simplifying it for them. If it's somebody who I really want that like to love Disney World, I want to go with them. I actually have a friend who she has been to Disney World before, but it's been over 10 years and she's planning a trip with her kids, and her son's girlfriend's going to join them, and her father-in-law is going to join them. And she reached out to me for help with planning, and she said to me, "Can't you just come?" She's like, "You're always at Disney World. Can't you just come?" But she is going, and she's going to be there like on Christmas Day. And I said, sadly, I cannot just be there because I cannot go on Christmas Day. But even she recognizes how much better her trip would probably be if I was just there and I was going with them and doing everything.
I just like to point out that I could have so easily gone back into that conversation with a "that's what she said," but I'm not gonna go there.
I feel like I said a lot of things that could have led to that, but I'm not sure which one you're referring to.
Thank goodness for the edit function. All right.
Is that your only pick, Scott?
What?
Grand Floridian's your only pick?
What else is there?
I have two, but
Which okay, well, I mean, I just think if you're going to try to impress somebody, if you're going, if you like them and you want them to come
If you
back,
like them.
you're gonna take them someplace fancy, and I think it doesn't really get any fancier than the Grand. I mean, obviously, there's other choices. I get that, but I feel like also too we have to talk about what time of year. Like, can we pick a time of year we would want to take these people?
We can get there. My only problem with you talked about the advertisements for the Grand Floridian. If I watch every commercial, the monorail somehow goes through the room, Cinderella camps out on the stairs, all the kids get to walk where there's somehow there's stormtroopers coming through the lobby. They set completely unrealistic expectations for the Grand Floridian in all the television commercials. I love
Yeah.
the Grand, but if we are basing it on the commercials, it's not even close.
What, that's never happened to you before?
Maybe just to you, buddy. The last thing I thought about walking through the lobby was me and you in bathrobes. So
The next commercial.
for me, I like the Grand. I think if you're trying to overawe them with Disney, I mean, I talked about it a couple of episodes ago when we were in the room and everything that was quintessential Disney was happening at the same time. Without a doubt, that will leave an indelible impression. The one thing I do find when we go with people who are not regulars and who aren't into it like we are, who aren't those complete Disney geeks who just want to immerse themselves, they always leave feeling more beat up than when they showed up. So for that reason, I'm not sure I would take them to the Grand. For me, I think I've got to take them over to Wilderness Lodge. And this is where I sent a coworker with his grandkids last year because you are close enough to everything to be right in the middle of it. You can get over to the park via a boat. You've got the electrical water pageant going by. That entrance in that lobby is completely overwhelming when you step inside. You want to talk about the feels. But if they've had enough and they need that off time, Wilderness Lodge is just far enough away and just quiet that they can have a little downtime and relax. And I think a first timer needs that balance before you just completely destroy them with 24/7 Disney for 7 or 8 days.
I think too. It also depends on are we bringing kids? Are they having kids? Are they not having
I think it
kids?
depends on a lot of things.
But my answer is going to probably change a little bit based on time of year because what Phil just said. That lobby at Wilderness Lodge. If we're talking about November through Christmas time, I'm probably going to change up my answer a little bit. If we're talking about somebody that is just a couple with no kids, I might even change my answer with that too. Like a more, not that Grand Floridian is not adult themed, but we had also talked about Riviera being more geared towards like the adults, with a little less theming as far as like the in your face, little kids Disney stuff, Tower Studios, things like that. I think my answer might change depending on some factors.
Kathleen, you said you had two. What have you got?
Well, actually, I have three. I lied.
Is there a list?
No, Grand Floridian, because I think that's just anytime someone thinks of Disney, I think they think of Grand Floridian or Polynesian. I think Polynesian is like number two, and number three would be Animal Kingdom Lodge.
I think those are solid choices. I think Polynesian is probably at the top of my list too,
Mhm.
because I don't know what it is, but we always talk about the feels. But a lot of people, when you think of Disney, you automatically think of the Polynesian, and it just seems to be an overall might not be your number one, but it's always in
Mhm.
most people's favorites.
It's funny. This really highlights the difference between how I think going all the time and being a DVC member and taking a first time person. I moved away from Polynesian, and we all know how much I love that resort. I own two contracts there. It's what we call home. I didn't pick Polynesian because it's such a busy location and such a busy lobby. But now thinking about it, I'm not sure that's a detraction for a first time person. We are there so much we want a little bit of remove and not be in the middle of all the hustle and bustle. But for a first time person, that might actually be a benefit.
Yeah, you want them to keep coming back. And to me, those are the three resorts that I would take someone that would want to definitely come back.
Animal Kingdom suffers because of the transportation issue. I think that could potentially be a problem, and it's a little bit further away from everything. But I think just the uniqueness of that resort, having a savannah, the theming, the overall theming. I mean, you just automatically
The food.
you walk into that resort and you're like, wow. You see that lobby at Jumbo, and that right there is what sets the bar for the rest of your vacation.
I don't disagree, but I think the buses, especially for a first time person, are a bit of a detraction. Amy said it. You want this to be as easy and stress free as possible. And I don't think the buses help. And that's probably the only hit I could give Animal Kingdom Lodge for a first time person. I don't want their first trip to have their memories centered around buses or bus problems or long bus rides or long bus waits.
I also think that Animal Kingdom Lodge is like super niche, and that won't be for everybody. I think that and I feel as though while they might be impressed by it and think it's beautiful, it may not align with, well, I don't know, because I'm going to contradict myself when I talk about the resorts that I would pick, but I feel as though it is so far removed from what anybody's expectation would be, which could be a good thing, but it could also be something that would people might feel like, well, I wanted to come to Disney World. I didn't want to come and stay like someplace that was so almost like you're staying in a zoo. You know what I
Yeah, and
mean?
I
Like
think it
that.
also like, you had mentioned it just depends on who's coming. Like who are the people coming.
Yeah, you're gonna
But
know. You're probably gonna know what they like, what they're looking for, the dynamics of, is it a family with kids? Is it just adults? And then based on that, you're gonna be able to give a better
like,
suggestion.
just a real quick, when my dad was down here a year ago or a year or so ago, we put him up in a DVC room and I'm like, okay, I know my dad, where would he want to stay? And I think he would like Wilderness Lodge or Animal Kingdom Lodge. So there was a room available at Animal Kingdom Lodge and he absolutely loved it. But he's retired from the military and was stationed in Africa for some time. And he couldn't get over how much was so like he was just immersed,
Authentic.
like he was back in Africa again. So he absolutely loved it.
He loved it so much he almost bought a contract. Very close to buying a contract.
Yeah, I think it just depends on who it is you're talking about. But I will say, going back to the buses, I think that's part of the experience is the Disney transportation, the Disney buses. I don't mind taking the buses. Sometimes I have to fight Scott to take a bus because sometimes I miss doing that. And Lily loves taking the buses.
I also think that a first timer who doesn't have any expectations and doesn't know any better, they might just think this is how you get around, and
That's what I was
it
gonna
is
say.
it does become part of the experience. Like you have this Disney themed bus and it pulls right up to your resort and it becomes part of the convenience of staying on property is that you have a mode of transportation that brings you someplace. And again, if they don't know any better, then
Hmm.
they are not going to know that there are other resorts that are like, have more desirable modes of transportation.
Exactly. I don't think a first timer is ever going to look at a bus, a free bus that gets you back and forth to wherever you want to go and say, "Oh my god, this is terrible." They're just not going to know any better.
It's not that it's terrible, and I guess the reason that I said that, and I need to give a shout out as well while I'm thinking about it, just an honorable mention to Yacht Club, and I can even combine yacht and beach because that was our first stay and we were totally hooked. I don't think that bus transportation is a problem. I do agree that to an extent it's part of the experience. But if I think back on all the trips we've taken and what some of my most frustrating times have been at Disney, whether it be as a parent or in the afternoon when everyone's hot or late at night, it hasn't been getting the bus at the resort. It's always been the wait for the bus trying to get back to my room. And I just feel like that experience comprises a large percentage of our negative memories of Disney. And I just don't know that I'd want to subject a first timer to that if I had an option to do otherwise. That's all.
Absolutely. You know
Yeah.
how you feel at the end of a long day,
Well,
and
my dad
you
didn't
don't.
like the
Yeah,
buses at
you
all.
you don't want anybody to feel that their first trip. That's what they're going to remember. I spent all day at Magic Kingdom. I'm tired. I'm hot. I'm thirsty, and now you have to wait 45 minutes for a bus.
And the kids are cranky and they just want to get back to the pool, or they're tired and their feet hurt and they just want to get back to their bed. That is always the pressure point for us in any given trip.
Definitely.
So Phil, you kind of touched on my pick, and I mean, it's probably comes as a surprise to nobody that I would pick Beach Club as the place that I would bring a first timer.
Anyone want to
Because
guess where she's going to take them to eat?
Could it be California Grill?
Well, we're gonna get there later. Let's not no, spoiler alert. Come
We're
on.
not spoiling any surprises here, Amy, I can assure you.
But I mean, I think all things, no matter who I'm bringing, I feel like appealing to the lowest common denominator. I think that staying at Beach Club or Boardwalk would be my second pick. It's kind of checking the box for a lot of different types of travelers. What is that face?
This is no 2 episodes in a row. You just referred to your friends that you're taking to Disney as the lowest common denominator. Do they not belong in DVC Clubhouse?
That's not what I meant. I meant in looking at the things that are going to appeal to people across the board. I'm not talking about my friends. I'm talking about
Just the people you're bringing that are the lowest common denominator.
So this is the same person that said on the last episode, if you don't belong to the group, the Facebook group.
Yeah, if you don't belong there, you're the lowest common denominator.
That's okay, Amy. You just got back from the
okay.
West
Moving
Coast.
on. No, yeah, it's the brain fog, guys. It's the brain fog, the jet lag. But I feel like the Crescent Lake area appeals to a very wide demographic. Like whether you're a couple, whether you're going on a girls' trip, whether you're going with kids, like you are going to appeal to every single one of those demographics. And I think that what is so appealing, and it's what was appealing to me the first time I went to Disney World. I stayed at the Contemporary and absolutely fell in love with Beach Club because it just, I loved the aesthetic of it, but I loved that it was close to Epcot and to, at that time, was MGM Studios. And I loved, even at that time when I went before Boardwalk was even built, I loved that it kind of had this like little neighborhood feel with Yacht Club right next door and Swan and Dolphin right there because of the the number of dining options that you have. So I really feel like and also I think that kind of like to your point, Scott, Grand Floridian and the monorail resorts are really kind of like what is how Disney World is marketed to people. And I've heard people say before that they had no idea that the boardwalk area, that the Crescent Lake area even really existed if they did not, weren't going specifically to the resort or did an exit out of International Gateway. Because it's just like this hidden area that unless you're staying at the resorts, you probably wouldn't go. But it's such a quaint, easily walkable place to stay. And so you can stay at Beach Club or Boardwalk or Yacht Club, and you can walk easily to Epcot, to the other resorts. You can take the Skyliner or a boat to Hollywood Studios. So you have really easy access to so many different things. And that to me, and it's why I love staying there too, because I feel as though like the ease of access to things, and I'm making the joke because we talked about ease of access in a recent episode, and we said that word a lot, and here I go saying it again, but it's the truth that the ease of access to two parks and also, and not that you would necessarily always do this, but even being able to walk through Epcot to hop on the monorail sometimes could be fun,
We
especially,
do it all the
you know,
time just because it's part of the experience.
yeah. And so I feel as though there is like a I think that people would be pleasantly surprised at being at Crescent Lake, having it not be, and this is where I said that it's going to contradict what I said about Animal Kingdom Lodge, because I said Animal Kingdom Lodge might not kind of meet their expectations. I don't know that Crescent Lake would necessarily be something that they were expecting either, but because of its proximity and its access, I think that it would give people this almost this illusion that Disney World is like smaller and more quaint than it actually is because of how easy it is to get to different places. And you have some great lounges and restaurants around Crescent Lake. You've got great nighttime entertainment for both kids and adults over there. Some great pools at those resorts. So you've got mini golf in walking distance. You can rent Surrey bikes. So you're kind of getting like a full resort experience around Crescent Lake with access to 2 parks and the Skyliner if you wanted to hop on the Skyliner to go visit other resorts. I almost feel like Crescent Lake is kind of like a hub that brings you to different places with very easy access that for a first timer could be their kind of like a thing that would pleasantly surprise them about Disney World and versus maybe their expectations of things that they've heard that with the transportation and having to wait and feeling like, wow, this is really manageable because there's so much right here.
It definitely checks all the boxes. I think we've talked about that dozens of times now. Crescent Lake just checks all the boxes.
And it's why all of us here love it so much. I mean, honestly, I feel like Scott likes it the least. Not that you don't like it, but I mean, I think that Kathleen, Phil, and I we sing the praises of Crescent Lake the way you sing the praises of Grand Floridian.
Out of everybody on this panel, I would like to point out the one person that does not own a contract at Crescent Lake.
That would be me.
Thank you. I love it there. I do. You're right. I probably just specifically geared toward this episode. I think of all the monorail resorts. I even was going to throw Bay Lake in there. I mean, you talk about ease of access to a park. I mean, get a theme park view. How you can't get any more magical than that. You don't want to take everybody down in the hustle and bustle of Magic Kingdom on Main Street and fight the crowd. Watch it from your balcony. Yeah, I just for this topic, I probably gravitate 100% towards all of the monorail resorts. Not taking anything away from Crescent Lake. I love Crescent Lake, but I think that would probably be like, okay, your first time, you got the full experience. Next time you come back, you want to try something a little bit more laid back, completely different experience.
And I just want to point out that I can just with one word tell you why I don't own on Crescent Lake. It's 2042. It's the only reason I don't own on Crescent Lake.
And that's the only reason why I consider selling it.
All right, so we all have kind of different approaches to the first time hotel stay experience. What are your must do's that you feel like any first timer at Disney World has to do?
Parks or dining or anything.
I think like the first thing that comes to your mind of like if you were bringing somebody, this is something that they have to do, they have to experience.
I'll jump right in here because it's the one thing that we do not traditionally do as repeat visitors who have been there time and time again. You've got to do fireworks. Specifically, you've got to do Magic Kingdom fireworks.
Mhm.
And we are running for the exit as fast as we can as soon as we hear those opening strains of Happily Ever After. Been there, done that. Absolutely love it. We bought the dessert party, but I just hope the bypass is open behind Main Street. We get the kids out to the boat and we watch them on the way back to the resort. But if I'm bringing a first timer, it's absolutely a must do. And it is the opposite of what we do as a family, but they have to see that. You want to talk about where the feels are? They are right there.
Yep, that was my number one. Definitely Happily Ever After, right in the hub, right up front.
I could see that.
And to expand upon that too, I agree with that, but I also think that Phantasmic is
Yep.
like right up there of something that I think is I feel like Phantasmic is something that kind of exceeds everybody's expectation. Even when I haven't seen it for a long time, and now that isn't the case, but recently I feel like the first time I'd seen it for a long time was I don't know, was it with you, Phil?
Yeah, it might have been a few years ago. Actually, the night we saw Scott and Kathleen, maybe.
Yeah, and it was the first time that I had seen it in a really long time, and like I like forgot how awesome it was, like, and we had so much fun, like we were singing our hearts out.
I don't know about this we stuff. I'm not admitting to
I
anything.
uh I seem to recall very vividly, and this is not because of jet lag, that you might be
Video or it
singing.
didn't happen.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, where is the video?
Well, we just went to see Phantasmic not that long ago, and it was Lily's first time watching it because she's always loved Happily Ever After. And She absolutely loved it. And she said, this is way better than Happily Ever After.
She is Team Phantasmic now.
And I'm like,
I like Phantasmic. I think it's an incredible show. I don't know that it has ever given me the feels that Happily Ever After has, and nothing. I'm not sure anything will give me the feels that Illuminations did, but that's just my own deep-seated nostalgia. I love Phantasmic. I think it's an absolute must-do for a first timer. For the feels, just for me personally, it's Magic Kingdom Main Street Happily Ever After.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of those things would absolutely be on my itineraries for um for a first timer,
And
for
Luminous
sure.
is not awful either. We watched it all together.
I
I
like it a
think
lot.
I'm always going to have a little bit of saltiness because it's not Illuminations, but it is better than Harmonious, and it is 100 million bajillion 11 trillion times better than that disaster trash called Epcot Forever.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the nighttime shows are. I think that would be like I would classify that as like number, as its own bullet point is like the nighttime shows first timers have to do.
Definitely.
Well, that's the nighttime. I think I'm going to jump to the morning time. And I think if I'm going to rope drop something, I'm going to rope drop Animal Kingdom. I think you have to do that park in the morning. And I think the one thing that I would want people to do would be like the safari first thing in the morning. And I don't know, that was the first thing that came to my mind other than fireworks. That's what I would want to show people at a park. One of the first things would be the safari over at Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I think you've got to, and then probably buy their way onto Flights of Passage just because it's incredible. It really is truly an experience. I think if I were over at Epcot, it would have to be Guardians, Living with the Land just for the nostalgia, and Soarin'. I always feel like my trip hasn't truly started until I hear those opening strains of Soarin'. Hollywood Studios, I'll let you guys step in there. Nothing screams to me there. I'd probably bring them into Galaxy's Edge if they were Star Wars fans. And then I got to think about Magic Kingdom because there's so much there.
I mean, for Hollywood Studios, I'm definitely going to Galaxy's Edge because I'm somebody who's not a Star Wars fan, and Rise of the Resistance just blew me away. And that is an attraction. I mean, to me, that is like the best theme park attraction I've ever experienced. And that is something that I would absolutely be buying a Lightning Lane single pass for 100% with a first timer, because I think that that is something that is such a unique attraction, so immersive. It's long, it's fun, it's exciting, and it doesn't really make you feel motion sick. So I think that that's something too that like would be appealing for people. And just like the grandeur of it is, I think, really impressive. Even if you are not a Star Wars fan, you know what a stormtrooper looks like, and to walk into that hall of stormtroopers, if you are not expecting it, I think that that's just something that shows the attention to detail and the like lengths that Disney Imagineers go to create an immersive experience. So Rise is 100% like a must do. Rise, Flight of Passage, Soarin', and I mean, for me, Magic Kingdom for me is really all about the classics. I want people to experience Pirates, Haunted Mansion, Peter Pan.
People Mover. My head went
Yeah,
the
those
same
are the
place.
things.
The things that just resonate with people, even with all the new rides, I'd want them to see Tron because it's incredibly cool. Seven Dwarves is fun. But when people think of Disney and Walt Disney World, it is those classic attractions, and you've got
Teacups.
to bring them the teacups, even the awfulness that is the Speedway. You've got to bring them to all of those original, nostalgic, resonates Disney attractions.
Just when I went to Disneyland for the first time in November 2021, that's like as close as I can kind of come to being a first timer again. And even though we have teacups at Disney World, and I don't ride them because I find them to be dizzying, but just seeing them at Disneyland, I just was so excited by it. And I sat and I watched them. I didn't ride it, but I sat and I watched them because it just looked so like Disney. Like I was like, this just feels so much like Disneyland. And it looks a little different at Disneyland than it does at Disney World. But there is something so iconic about them. that even to just sit and watch them feels like you have arrived. You're here. You are in Disney World. And that is something that even if you don't ride it, I feel like people will get the feels and it will resonate for them. I also think that watching a parade down Main Street is is a must-do experience. You know, you don't necessarily need to sit there and camp out to get the best spot, but just to sit like if one is coming down Main Street, to just stand there and watch it for a little while to see the character interaction with the people that are sitting on the curb and lining the curb, listening to the music, seeing there's something about like Main Street USA with a parade on it, people lined up, the balloon people on the sides with those big, the clear balloons that have the colored Mickey balloons inside. Like that just is something for me that feels so quintessentially Disney. And I feel like people, even just get a little taste of it. I think that that is something that is impressive to witness.
Festival of Fantasy is amazing. I'm still heartbroken. We don't have a nighttime parade back yet. And I'm still protesting the removal of the Move It, Shake It, Mouse Could Dance It street party, which was my favorite.
And you're trying to convince people that you don't sing at Fantasmic?
No idea what you're talking about. So anyway, Kathleen, what were you about to say?
The first thing I thought of was fireworks, taking someone to see Happily Ever After. But the second thing, I really think you have to experience characters, the meet and greets, go to a character dining. I mean, I remember my first character dining in meet and greet. I was crying when I was an adult.
Our first trip, technically before DVC, was we had the dining plan, and the entire week was littered with nothing but character meals.
That's if
Because
we had gotten to dining, that is written down on my list. Much more character dining, 1,000%.
yep, sometimes
So what
twice a
would be
day.
your number one pick for a character dining experience for a first timer?
What meal?
That is so
Well,
hard. But
that's up to you.
I mean, I really, really love the character interaction at Topolino's for breakfast. I mean, I love it. I think, was that my first character experience, like dining?
I think it was.
I mean, we've been there multiple times for breakfast, and it's always great. Like the way, how much interaction you get with them, the show that they put on, the music, the dancing. I just absolutely love it there.
And
for
not
the
to take
characters.
anything away from the food at Topolino's, but this to me would be more about the experience and not
Yes.
so much about the food. Obviously, character meals are not generally known for their,
No,
their
but
quality.
I like their breakfast there. It's pricey. We haven't been back in a long time, but it's one of my favorite character dining experiences. For dinner,
Chef Mickey's.
I just don't agree with Chef Mickey's. I'm sorry. Man, that's a hard one.
I feel like Tusker House is a good one for a first timer.
That's my
Tusker?
breakfast. I
Yeah.
was waiting my turn, but if I had to pick a breakfast, it's Tusker House. And you can say the
Yeah.
food doesn't matter, but that is incredible breakfast food. A giant buffet, fantastic character interaction, and you can do it right after you rope drop the safari. It's right there.
Yep.
I think Tusker House has to be top of my list with an honorable mention to Cape May Cafe.
Yeah, we like Tusker House. I don't.
Crystal Palace, I think, should get a mention too. I think that's a solid breakfast, and even
Dinner.
The dinner is solid, and it's kind of unique. It's Winnie the Pooh. Everything else you think of is usually like the Fab Five, but you get a unique experience there, and I think the breakfast kind of is a little bit better than the dinner there.
Yeah, it was on my list. I was actually going to pick it for lunch or dinner, more lunch, because I think the dinner is just okay. But I think some of our best character interactions have been at Crystal Palace. You cannot beat the sight lines looking outside of Crystal Palace as you're waiting, everything's going on around you. As much as it pains me to say this, if you're going with little kids, especially girls, it's horrifically expensive and the food is only okay. But Akershus for the Princess Parade, if you want to talk about time is money at Walt Disney World, you can knock out all the princesses in one meal.
Yeah. I forgot about that
It's
one.
a better option than Cinderella's Royal Table. I mean, it's a little bit cheaper, but definitely a better bang for your buck.
Not by much, actually. It's expensive to do the
Yeah,
princess dinner at Akershus.
I think Cinderella's is like 75 per person now, and I think Akershus is like what, in the 60s now.
It was like 65 when we went.
It's catching up pretty
I
quick.
think.
Yeah, it was right there.
Mm-hmm.
I know where I'm not going to take people, and just me personally, I already know Hollywood and Vine is out, and so is Garden Grill.
We've done Garden Grill. I think we've had okay meals there. We've had awful meals there, but Hollywood and Slime is 1,000% out. Never getting my money ever again. It was awful.
Mm.
All right, what else are we doing with first timers? Anything?
Well,
Here you go, Amy. Here's your big moment. Where you're taking him to eat.
You got to go on the monorail at least.
Don't get in her way. Amy's taking them to dinner.
This starts at what?
I'm getting ready to wine and dine. I'm at California Grill.
You line up at 2:30 for the lounge.
For a first timer, no. For a first timer, we are not sitting at the lounge. We are going to get an advanced dining reservation, and we're gonna sit and we'll do the prefix, and we will take our time and we will linger over dinner and dessert and drinks, and we will step out onto the rooftop to watch the fireworks, because I agree that they need to experience the fireworks from Main Street USA first, but then later in the trip have dinner at California Grill, where they can now see all of the things that they've already visited, that vantage point of Seven Seas Lagoon and Bay Lake, and then being able to watch the fireworks over Cinderella Castle from California Grill after having that meal. To me, like, that is just magical. I just feel like the quality of the dining experience, which I do think it had started to decline a little bit, but I think that it has kind of started to rebound a little bit. And I've been hearing so many more positive things about people's experiences. Like, I think they just hit a rough patch around the 50th when they introduced that new menu, but I think that they've kind of rebounded from that a bit. It is still expensive, but I think for a first timer, for a special meal, that is where I'm taking them.
It's still a prefix menu, right?
It is still a prefix, but they've changed the menu back to being more similar to what it was pre 50th prefix menu, when they brought back all of those like old time like classics or whatever. And
what killed me wasn't just the price of the prefix. It was that everything we loved at California Grill got pulled off the menu. I'm not going back to get things I don't like. I know what was amazing and what I ate there, and that's what I'm willing to pay for.
Yeah, and I think that they've reverted back to much more similar to that. So, yeah, I just think that that dining experience is magical, and for a first timer, I think that that is something that would be so impressive to them. Like a great meal with great service, with an absolutely beautiful view of Seven Seas Lagoon, seeing that the monorail going around Seven Seas Lagoon, seeing the Magic Kingdom up close from like, not up close, but like from the bird's eye view. It's just, to me, that's just an amazing experience. And the reason why I say it is because it obviously has been an important part of like my Disney experience
You don't
since
say.
I was young. And so, and it's not one that has worn off. This is not something that I'm like, I'm over it. Like, it's still like, it gets me every time I'm up there, where I'm up there and I see the sunset and then I see the fireworks. Like, it just, to me, is just magical, and I love it.
Also, the electrical parade over on Seven Seas Lagoon.
Phil said that.
Oh, he did?
Yep.
Oh, my
Yeah, because it goes by Wilderness Lodge, and I picked it for that. So, as somebody who doesn't drink, we touched on lounges. What do you guys think about Trader Sam's?
Definitely a fun and unique experience for a first timer. Being a repeat visitor, it's not something that we have to do every time because it's kind of a pain to try to wait an hour or two to get in that line. But I think definitely if it's somebody that enjoys a good time, a unique lounge bar experience, I think that has to be at the top of the list.
I mean, there is very little more themed than that place in all of Walt Disney World.
I mean, I would say Enchanted Rose too. I think you probably have to go over there, but Trader Sam's definitely for a first time experience is number one for sure.
Yeah, I don't know that that would make my first time list because I do think that it's a time commitment in terms of the waiting. And so I feel like I would want to bring them to places sort of like Enchanted Rose. Like if I was going with adults only, I would want to go to Enchanted Rose. I would want to go to Jelly Rolls. Like I think Jelly Rolls would be a must do. And I'd probably even go to Oga's. You know, like I like
Mhm.
the novelty of Oga's has worn off for me, but I think that Oga's is kind of a fun experience for a first timer.
So if you're going with kids, you'd take them to a different bar and lounge?
Well, if I was going to with kids, I couldn't bring them to Jelly Rolls because Jelly Rolls is 21 plus.
Just the
So,
way you put that, if I were going with adults, the lounges I would go to.
but if I was going with kids, I would go definitely still go to Enchanted Rose. I just couldn't bring them to Jelly Rolls because they wouldn't get in.
My daughter thought it was just the best. They brought her a mocktail and she got to set herself up out in the deck at Enchanted Rose and they
Aw,
treated her super special. She was positively enraptured.
that's sweet.
All right, so does that wrap it up for bringing a first timer? Any other thoughts?
I
Talked
can't think
about
of anything.
lounges, resort.
I think we touched
food.
what? Resorts, dining.
I think the only other thing is that I would, for a first timer, also schedule a pool day. I would schedule like a day of just relaxation by the pool. And I would also, and maybe on the day that we had pool time, we would head over to Disney Springs for dinner and we would have, go to dinner, check out some of the live entertainment there. If the drone show was happening, definitely stay for the drone show. So I think that that is something that I would, recommend for a first timer is take a day at the pool, relax by the pool, hang out at your resort, take advantage of it, and I would definitely recommend going to spending a night at Disney Springs. If you don't, again, it would depend on the age, if you. But I do think that even if you do have kids, going over to Disney Springs for one meal and just shopping and checking out the entertainment over there is worth it.
Anytime I talk to somebody who's bringing young kids or a family, the one piece of advice I give them, and I've said it before, I know it's expensive. I know you want to do everything. Do not go commando for 7 or 8 straight days, open to close, rope drop till the nighttime spectacular. Take a break every day and build in a rest day. Just trust me on this. You are going to be happier in the end. All right, that wrap it up.
Yeah, I think so.
I feel like this should be like a paid occupation. Like this should be something that we all start. For you first timers that would like to have a really great experience, contact us. We're known as Magic Makers. I only charge a little bit per hour, but we'll make sure it's the most magical first experience at Disney that you could possibly have.
I like it. All right, folks, you heard it here first. We're starting a new business. We thank you as always for listening. If you could head on over to Apple Podcasts, give us a like, a 5-star review, we would very much appreciate it. Amy?
And if you don't already belong to our Facebook group, DVC Clubhouse, go over there and join us. I'm sorry.
She really is
Brain
jet
fog.
lagging. Would you like to
Brain-
start over?
She's like, I guess.
So just follow us on Facebook, DVC Clubhouse. Find us on Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And until next time, we'll DVC you real soon.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.
And so our journey comes to an end.
Oh, no, please, can't we go back to page 1 and do it all over again?
Started this thing together, and that's how we'll finish it.
Because that, my friends, is where the magic lives.